the senator, while indoctrinated, could not explain his toxicity.
All the second stage tanks now pressurized. Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal. 12, 11, 10, 9. Ignition.
Yes. Did you do the countdown? Okay, I didn't see or hear it. Awesome. Well, hello and welcome to technical difficulties with the Badgers then. But hello and welcome to HBR Talk 355. Will you DEI for her? I'm your host, Hannah Wallen, here with Nonsense Annihilator Lauren Brooks and the personification of perceptivity, Mike Stevenson, along with assistants from the Doge in Charge, Brian Martinez, and we're returning to our slog through feminist federal funding. Again, with more visits to the Department of Defense for some information about sexual assault in the military and its intersection with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Last week, we were looking at some videos. We're going to continue that a little bit this week, but we also have some other material to go through, just depending on how quickly we get through this video. It took me a minute. There's a thing I will point out about this video that I didn't even notice last week that just, when I saw it, it was like, oh, that's such a groaner. But before we get into that, got to do what we got to do. As always, Honey Badger Radio dishes out a smorgasbord of thought-provoking discussions, and as experiences both recent and long past have demonstrated, the provoked thoughts are fighting back. They've made it clear that for people like us, relying on third-party payment platforms like Patreon to fund our work is treading on thin ice, or building our house in the path of a rapidly growing wildfire. In light of this, we strongly encourage our supporters to switch at least their support for us to feedthebadger.com, the most stable way to help us out. And if you want to tip us directly instead of relying on any social media platforms tip jar, the link for that is feedthebadger.com/justthetip. And as always, the same risk applies to our social media platforms, which is why you should further provoke the thought police by tracking our thought-provoking discussions on honeybadgerbrigade.com, where you can find your way to all of our content, as well as a link to feedthebadger.com in the drop-down menu at the top of the page. And with that, so the thing I noticed about this, that I closed off the show, closed off the after show, started getting ready to head out to bed because I had to work the next day early in the morning, and I happened to glance back at the screen. And so one of the things that we've been pointing out for years is that the gender mafia is Marxist, right? The gender mafia is communist. It's people do not like hearing this, but this is something that was inflicted on Western civilization by the KGB during the Cold War. If you haven't heard the interview with Yuri Bezmenov, where he explains about demoralization of the West, you can look it up. There's text versions of it available, the transcript, and then there's also video out there of it. It's all over the place. The Google couldn't get rid of it. It's so they just kind of, you have to sometimes go a little far in the search results to see it. But the upshot is that KGB agents infiltrated the hippie movement, the anti-war movement in the United States, and started this. It was the progressive stack, the diversity, equity, and inclusion thing, the alternate sexuality ideas, all of the claims that your sexual proclivities can be an identity, that gender is a social construct, all of those things that we think are just organic to feminism Those are all things that kind of stemmed from this effort to demoralize the West and cause social breakdown that would lead to an economic breakdown.
Surely, to some degree, it goes as far back as French guy, wasn't it? Fourier, Charles Fourier, who did precede the majority of the communist movement. So it's hard to if it's hard to say. It's hard to say exactly where it started. It probably didn't start with Fourier either. It's a movement that's always been boiling up, and it does boil up in any civilization that becomes too decadent, that basically runs out of stuff to do. So arguably, it goes all the way back to the Industrial Revolution, and you could just as well say a precursor to it came about because of the Agricultural Revolution. I mean, the Roman Empire fell for a reason. There were empires before that fell for a reason. Like, any time there's a revolution that makes it easier for people to exist, these proto-communists come out of the woodwork and don't have as many problems to complain about, so they invent new problems. It's like,
with the Cold War and the 20th century communism, the pattern of communism in the 20th century, you get more of a, like, it switched during the 20th century from we're going to separate ourselves out from the rest of society and live the way we want to, and not be part of that, as the way communists dealt with their differences of opinion as to how economics should work and how the social order should be set up. They switched over time to everybody has to do things our way or our way doesn't work, right? And that sort of started with Marx and the movements that Marx inspired in Russia and later countries that adopted communist governments and so on. And what really struck me about this video, once I really got a good look at it, is that this chick's name is actually Marxia. When she decided she was non-binary, she took the name Marxia. I don't think that's a real name. It's not one I've heard before.
No,
it might
never.
be one of those Gen X made up names, because Gen Xers did have quite a habit of handing bizarre made up names to their children.
I have to wonder if Marx is a Teutonic retranslation of Mars, as in the Greek god of war. That would make a lot of sense. I need to look that up. Sorry, carry on.
Yeah. But I just thought that was funny. Like, all this, came out of
Roman god of war. Sorry, the Greek one is Ares.
Yeah, all this comes out of a Marxist nation trying to break down the economy and the social structure of the United States. And what's the name of this chick who's trying to tell us all about pronouns? Marxia. It's everywhere. It's almost like they have to tell you what they're doing, or they can't do it. So without further ado, let's see if this video plays. I've actually had it on my screen for a few hours, so it might make me click a couple of times here.
Non-binary,
it's playing, yay!
A man or a woman, right? Me personally, as a non-binary person, I sometimes find myself smack dab in the middle. Sometimes I find myself...
Here's the question that I have with people who identify as non-binary, all right? What are you identifying as male characteristics versus female characteristics that make you think you're flipping back and forth?
Yeah.
Because we get told that gender is a social construct, right? So there is no such thing as real masculinity, and there is no such thing as female masculinity, or as real femininity. And yeah, there's no such thing as female masculinity and male femininity, right? You're all, you're either non-binary, and sometimes you're male and sometimes you're female, or you're trans, and all the time you identify as the opposite sex to your biological sex.
But you're switching back and forth between what if neither of these have a fucking definition. then what is it? Where you go? Where are you going?
It'll be sometimes they feel like a victim, and sometimes they feel like they're winning.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is the actual binary system that they operate under. Men are always winning, and women are always victims.
Yes.
So
I have to wonder. I really do.
whenever they feel like they're victims, they go, "I'm a woman." And whenever they feel like they're winning and they want to boast about it, they go, "I'm a man." But they will never
Yeah.
admit that, obviously.
Yeah, and it's something that I've wanted to ask a lot of non-binary people, and pretty much feminists in general. Like, what are they identifying as? What is masculinity to them? Because they can't seem to. They can tell you what's toxic masculinity, but they can't explain why those characteristics are masculine. They can't explain why those aren't just toxic traits that human beings engage in. Why do they attribute them to men? And, it's not because those are traits that women don't have. So I still haven't gotten a reason for that either. And the other thing that I wonder about, because again, you're not switching genitalia. You might be switching out the way that you dress, but I don't identify as masculine when I put on cargo pants. I just identify as being able to carry more shit without having to have a purse.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's pretty simple. It's not an identity, it's just a pair of pants. But, yeah, I don't get it.
Leaning more feminine. Sometimes I find myself leaning more masculine.
See, when she shows this, look at what she's showing here. Let's see if I can go back to this. Oop, that's too far.
Right? Me personally, as a non-binary person, I sometimes find myself smack dab in the middle. Sometimes I find myself leaning more feminine.
Right. Is that Beyonce? It's small and on my screen. And I can't tell.
Yes. Yes, I
Okay.
believe that is.
So that's a star. Okay. That's somebody who her whole life, her whole career is about getting people's attention, showing off her appearance, her talent and skills in a way that entertains people, in order to get applause and praise and money, probably mostly for the money. But yeah, it's the bad part is I'm guessing this because it's as small as it is on my screen. It's got to be even smaller on you guys' screen. But I'm guessing this just based on the fact that she has the big hair and the sparkly outfit and looks like she's on a stage there. Because I can't see her face that well. But the Chud King says Holly Berry ? I maybe, but this looks
No,
like a
that
performer on a stage.
that is Beyonce. That is
Is that
Beyonce.
Beyonce?
And
Okay.
it she has become the archetypical icon for femininity somehow.
Yeah.
I don't really understand because, a lot of these women are single and lonely, and Beyonce is married with children. So
And seems pretty happy.
She's an independent woman who needs you to pay her bills.
yes,
So it covers everything that it needs to cover.
There we go.
She needs all of these people who somehow can't afford to pay their student loans, but they can pay $5.5 million to buy tickets to her fucking concert. So I don't know how that fucking makes sense. I didn't learn that in college, but
Yeah, that's quite a ticket fee there. Like,
yeah, yep.
she
But
is a piece.
But hey, she's independent and she's doing her thing and she's representing women
Yeah,
somehow.
y'all are in the cheap seats here. I
Whatever happened to the rest of Destiny's Child, by the way? Does anyone remember?
Oh, they're dead.
Yeah.
apparently
Tell-
it got
tells you all you need to
got
know about the
aborted.
sisterhood, right? Yeah.
It got
Well,
aborted.
they grew up and became women, and
Oh yeah.
this one is still stuck in the childhood that she wants you to believe. And not only that, but she is pushing her children into the spotlight, well, at
Oh,
least
that's not
one of
good.
them. at least one of them, because the other two seem to have developmental issues, and I won't go into that because that's just going to spark a whole bunch of controversy.
How many of them mysteriously disappeared in a Diddy party?
Yeah,
no.
no, that didn't happen. Let's not do that. But that didn't happen. But she's, there are children that are not as much in the spotlight as the one Blue Ivy, and she's is all of 13, 14, and being dressed as like some kind of adult in
Mhm.
these outfits, and it's just pushed in front of us like this is a woman, this is your femininity, and
She didn't really get a chance to grow up, did she?
not at all, not at all. And I don't know what we would expect from a Hollywood child. I don't know if you even want to call it a prodigy, because
Right.
I haven't heard her sing.
Well,
The only thing I've seen her do is dance, and
yeah.
okay, she can move, right? Any robot can fucking mimic the same fucking movements that has been taught or trained into them, right? So I don't know, and I don't want to take any humanity away from her. Maybe she is some kind of talented in some way that I'm not seeing, but if it was that evident, like if Blue Ivy was a singer, she would already be producing fucking records right now,
Right.
right
Right.
now.
And the thing is that the music industry, something that I noticed, is music had a really, you can say a rapid change. Black music in America had a pretty rapid change between like what it was in the 50s and 60s, what it was just in the 70s, and then what it became in the 80s and 90s. And it went from being about um the same things that white music was about: family, um, teenage experiences, life issues like normal life issues like how your economic status affects you and stuff like that. What life things that you're going through, like weddings and birthdays and uh, breakups and getting together with people and all that. And it started becoming about um like it took the same avenue that heavy metal sort of took. Started becoming about being anti culture, the regular culture, anti joy. And there was a I saw a fight sort of between like rap that was about, hey, this gang shit is stupid, let's not do it, and rap that was about, hey, this gang shit is our way of life now, and you better be ready to get involved in it. Just like I saw a fight between heavy metal that was about, hey, life isn't all dark and angry and pain, and heavy metal that was all about, hey, you know what, life is all about dark and angry and pain, revel in it. And it seems like the dark and angry and pain won when it came to black music, and I don't
Well,
think it was the general population that guided that. I think it
no,
was the
no,
industry and the
no, no,
upper
nope.
echelons in the industry.
No, no, nope, nope. That was one big psyop. Okay, that was one
Yeah.
big psychological operation on the
Yeah.
black community. Okay, because
That's what I feel like too.
it was at one point, it was about expression, right? But it was expression about what people were doing to us. Like think about what the music was like in the 80s. It was
Mhm.
all
Mhm.
dancing, happy. You know what I mean? How the hell did it all of a sudden turn into fucking the Sugar Hill Gang and White Lines, and oh well, your mama smoking crack and the fucking bass, and
Yep.
you know what I
Yep.
mean? And but that's exactly what happened, because that's what they did to us, and people don't want to acknowledge it. You know what I mean? People are turning a blind eye, and this is what really is pissing me off, and it really comes full circle into today's society, right? Because we just
Yeah.
ignore the fact that there has been an operation of destruction of the Black community, right? And we want
And in
to,
particular, the Black family.
yes, absolutely, the Black family, especially since since we were freed as slaves, right?
Yep.
And so, but people don't get that. They don't connect the dots, right? They're just so quick to say that, oh, well, you were never a slave, so you should never feel this, blah, blah, blah. It goes so much deeper than that. And while I will sit here, I will admit that, listen, yes, no, these kids today, the shit that they're doing is fucked up and it is disconnected from reality. But the fact remains is that they are so disconnected from reality that they don't realize what has happened to them. Right.
Yeah.
And they are so just so, oh my God, they're just so trained. It's like Pavlov's dog. Like they're just so trained to just hate what they deem as the oppressor, when you don't even realize that the people who are oppressing you was you yourself. When you think that you're a fucking slave, we were not all slaves. We were not all fucking slaves. Okay? Black people have been in this fucking country before Christopher Columbus sailed the goddamn ocean blue. But you try to explain that to people and it turns into, oh, we was kings. You know what I'm saying? It devolved so quickly into this just disbelief that we were anything but slaves. And so you have an education system, right? The Department of Education. You have these everything around us that has been teaching us that we were nothing but slaves. How the fuck do you think that these people are supposed to grow up with anything but a slave mentality?
Yeah. In fact, the education system, like the goal in trying to teach Black people that they were nothing but slaves is teaching them that they are nothing, right?
Yes.
That they don't have any historical greatness, that they don't
Yes.
have any historical roots to draw on other than victimhood. And I
Yes.
think it's designed to create automatons that vote a particular way, and it worked for a very
Yes.
long time, right? And Gen X
It's
will have to
still
start figuring
working.
that out.
It's still working. It's still
Yeah,
working.
it's
We
working. It's still working, but there are more and more. I'm seeing more and more Black people on social media saying, "Hey, this is what's been done to us, and we need to stop letting it work." So there's more and more people that are waking up to it, but not enough.
yeah,
But
there
what I'm seeing in this is so she's identifying femininity with, like, when I look at Beyonce, I see a person who has been forcibly sculpted and molded into a, what's it called? A sprite.
mhm.
Like when you play video games, the character that you are playing used to be called, I don't know if they're still calling it that, but back during the 8-bit and 16-bit game days, they were called sprites. You really didn't get a clear picture. Like if you looked up close, it was all pixelated. But if you stood far away and you didn't examine it too closely, you could, it's the same way that you look at a house and the position of the windows and the door makes it look like the house is shocked at you or something. I can't think of what the term is called when you see faces and things that aren't faces and stuff like that.
Pareidolia, I
Yeah,
believe.
your pareidolia makes it into it. It personifies it, right? And what I see is an attempt at a psychological phenomenon similar to pareidolia, where you see the Beyonce persona as the person and as a representation of what femininity and women are like and should be. And the persona is narcissistic. I don't know what the person Beyonce is actually like because we don't get to see that, right?
As I
That's secret. That's who she is when she's not in front of everybody. And she
Mhm.
might be she might be narcissistic, she might be shy, she might be scared, she might be happy, she might be a million things, right? But we don't know, because what we see is the entertainer, and the entertainer is by nature a somewhat narcissistic presentation. And so that's what she's showing us. Femininity is by nature narcissistic and self-indulgent,
Well,
because look how opulent her clothing is.
Mm-hmm.
as I understand it, Beyonce's manager is, or at least was, her dad. He was the same
That's
manager
wholesome.
who managed Destiny's Child, which would explain why Beyonce made it and the rest of them did not.
Yeah.
You say that's wholesome, but you could say the same
It
of the
can be the other way around.
You could say the same of the Jackson 5, and that wasn't quite
That
so
wasn't
wholesome.
wholesome.
Joe
Yeah, I mean,
Jackson
look
Yeah.
at
was,
Michael
was
Jackson and
notoriously a bit of a bastard.
Yeah, but he's since been ousted from the families ever since
Yeah.
the divorce. So
Right.
this is all, I can't say that this is a machination of the mother, because I think she's just there and holding on because I'm the mama, right? But
Right.
I think like they have autonomy over, well, I'm sure Beyonce has autonomy over, what she does and how she is, what contract she signs, right? This is
Right.
not, she's not under the behest of a parent, right? She's far beyond that, because she's now into the billionaire range of her
Right.
income capability. So this is it, the mother is nowhere near this. She's around it, but this is not something of her doing. And anything that goes, and anything that she decides to do, it has very little to do with her mother. I forget her mother's name even, and everyone should, because she is just a leech upon the
Yeah.
world. But yeah, it's just quite telling. I forgot how we even got
Well,
onto these
we're
people.
talking about how she's presenting femininity, because she chose, out of everyone in the whole world she could
Oh
have put
yeah,
up there, she chose Beyonce,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And I think of femininity and the range of women who have been famous for things they've done, and then the range of women that I've known. And there are many, many ways that femininity could have been presented in this video, right? It could have been presented uh, as having to do with caregiving. She could have put a nurse up there. She could have put a mom up there mothering a child. She could have put a woman doing work. She could have put anybody. Like, I mean, I know entertaining is work too, and it's work that I'm not cut out to do. So I'm not even going to deny that it's hard work, because if you put me in the position that that picture shows her in, I would faint. I'm not kidding you. It would just kill me. That would be it. I'd be done. I would have a rough time standing behind a podium talking to a group of people. Um, there was a room full of people that saw that at ICMI 19. Like, I literally had to hold on to the podium in order to not fall down. It was bad. But in any case, there's so many ways, an infinite number of ways that she could have portrayed femininity, and she chose opulence on stage. She chose most of her skin in that picture is showing. Like, I have no idea if that's a floor length dress or a bathing suit style costume or bikini style costume or whatever. But what we see in the picture of the part of her body that we see, the parts of her body that we see in the picture, the only thing that is covered is her breasts and the area covered by the straps that are necessary to hold up the part covering her breasts. That's it.
yes.
Everything else is uncovered.
Yes,
And
and not only that, I would like to point out that, you know, this isn't Oprah, one of the richest women in the world, but this
mhm.
is she is probably second or third most one of the richest women in the world. So it's is this what you're deeming as femininity when you just have all of this money? Because you're you are um you're pointing to the 1%.
Yeah,
Of
yeah.
and you are discarding the rest of the women of the world and saying that what? That they're just because they're not as beautiful or successful or as rich or as popular as this one woman, that somehow they're not feminine or not feminine enough?
When you're
They don't
when,
represent
when you're
femininity.
when you're
Right.
non-binary, you can be anyone you like. So you're not going to be a peasant. You're not going to be a male peasant and a female peasant. You're going to be Beyonce and whatever rich cunt she's about to point out on the left of the screen.
Right, right.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it's an interesting presentation there because that she didn't even show, like, if I was gonna say claim to be non-binary, which I like I said, I think that's bullshit. But if I was gonna do that and I was going to um show a picture of what I thought of femininity, what does this mean to me? There wouldn't be just one woman in it because
Yeah,
it's got such a variety of expressions, ways
right.
that people demonstrate this is femininity, that I would have to use a collage. And I'm going to go back to video quality on this, okay? These videos that they came out with, the minimum price, the shortest number that I saw for any of these videos that they came out with was like $3,000. All right. Now, just for comparison, back when we were shooting weddings, when we were when I was a photographer working with my family's photography business and a videographer working with the business, and we would take like between 6 and 8 cameras to somebody's wedding, would set them around all over. We would get as much footage as we could. We would show the entire wedding from multiple angles. Made sure that way that we always could see the faces during things like the kiss or the hands during the ring exchange and stuff like that. You know, there was a lot of work that went into that. And then at the end of it, we had a lot of production that went into it where you took all 6 to 8 cameras video and you watched through all of it, which was, you know, you'd watch it on fast forward, but it was still um quite a lot of video to go through. And then you took the scenes that would be the most pleasant memories from the wedding, or the things that they would most like, if, you know, somebody's grandmother did something special or somebody's great uncle showed up that they hadn't seen in years or something like that, you know, um, that that there was some special thing that took place during the father-daughter dance or the mother-son dance or anything like that. You know, you made sure to include that and give it some emphasis and everything. By the time we got done, there's, you know, music behind it. There's the scenes from the wedding didn't have music, but there would be the whole wedding. There would be a large part of the reception, every highlight of the reception. There would be all of that was in there, and then you had um, you know, any other special things that they might have wanted included, like still images. So there would be a slideshow at the end, and then we'd put our little, you know, this is who made this video at the end of that. And we, for the whole thing, going to the wedding, doing the photography, doing the videography, producing the video, producing the wedding album, we still, for all the services put together, charged what today would have been under $2,000. And for 3,000 or more, this might have been more than 3,000 because the other video we watched was only a minute long. This is what we get. This is what we paid like at least $3,000 for, possibly more, possibly $5, $6, $7, $8,000 for her to put a picture of Beyonce on the screen to represent femininity as a whole. And I'm not going to tell you how I'm spelling that. So what does she think of masculinity?
Feminine. Sometimes I find myself leaning more masculine.
So I don't know who that guy is.
I can't see who that is.
That
And it's
looks
not-
like a stock image of a man.
It's
in a
not because
suit.
they all look alike. I'm not saying that. But no,
It just looks like to me as a stock image of a man in a suit, and I don't recognize him because I can't see his face. But
I got no fucking
because,
idea. No
Yeah,
idea who that is.
like, I mean, if I can make this bigger, this is driving me nuts. I can't.
Is it just a still shot of this guy?
Oh god, the quality's so low that I still don't get any more detail in the face when I enlarge it.
Yeah, no,
That's
this
sad.
is
That's sad and pathetic. I'm sorry, but
yeah, no,
okay,
it's just a stock image, I think, which tells you all you need to know, right?
yeah, exactly.
Sometimes I feel like Beyonce. Sometimes I just feel like this guy, just some guy.
just some dude in a suit. And notice, okay, where Beyonce, of course, was represented by an image where most of her skin in the image, that's on the body of parts in the image is showing. Most of his skin is covered because he's in a suit, right? Then this is not a red carpet suit, right? This isn't a going to the Oscars or the Emmys or whatever, like public masturbation activity the entertainers do.
I mean,
Like,
you
none
can't.
of that.
You can't
It's
even tell how fat his
business suit.
wallet is.
No,
Well, his
But-
suit would give you some indication of that. Like,
No, I mean not necessarily.
she ain't messing with no broke nigga.
well, and the thing is, and gosh, I want to give credit where it's due, and I can't remember his name. This happens every time I try to remember somebody's name on purpose. But the guy that did the talk at ICMI in London, I don't remember that was. I think it was ICMI 18, where he talked about how men are often defined by their collars and their cuffs on their clothes, right? You have white collar work and blue collar work, and you have the priest's collar defining, who he is. His identity is defined by who he is. I wonder if she ever identifies with that aspect of masculinity. I'm sure that there's going to be somebody in my chat that'll remind me.
I remember the guy you're talking about. I just don't remember his name.
'cause
Yeah.
Entrance was really cool. He came in with bagpipes. And I love bagpipes. I'm probably like the only person on earth who loves bagpipes. But in any case, what he said really struck me because I come from a family that is a mix of higher income blue collar and lower income white collar. Like, the white collar men in my family are educators, and for the most part, although there are now there's a lot of the guys in my family that have become engineers because you look back at my family history, it's like somebody took the autism shaker and just drizzled it. And we got the good end of it where you have the high IQ and you love math and you build things and take things apart, and we get the bad end of it where you take things apart to figure out how they work, and then you realize that you weren't supposed to take that apart. But yeah, and most of the history of my family, like a lot of the guys, and some of the women as well, had those tendencies. But there was a lot of farming. There was a lot of I had a lot of truck drivers in my family, some nurses. So that goes into that white collar end, right? But a lot of factory workers, right? A lot of factory workers, a lot of people that built things for a living. And so on that side of the family, the lifespan was dramatically affected by your collar. And a lot of the blue collar workers and a lot of like the farming end of it, the clothing obviously for a farmer has to be more utilitarian as well because it's dirty work and hard work and dangerous work, right? But yeah, the collar frequently did affect your lifespan, and
It should be
and it's
centered more. It should be centered more around the tie than the collar, if you ask me. There's a reason
well,
blue
there
collar
is, but
workers
not
don't wear
all.
ties because ties
Yeah,
can
not
get
all.
ties can get caught in the machinery, and you can get fucking strangled to death.
Exactly, not all jobs allow you that level of opulence.
Ties
Yeah,
should be
but
phased out, people. Ties are fucking pointless, and they're just nooses. Sorry, I've derailed you, Hannah. Go on. Sorry.
they're kind of dangerous. But when it really boils down to it, the thing we aren't identifying men as, especially in this image that she's provided here, like she's not looking at masculinity in terms of doing an achievement. She's looking at masculinity in terms of usefulness, right? A guy in a suit is a representation of a cog in a machine,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So we have the opulent, narcissistic feminine and the utilitarian masculine. So she's flipping back and forth in her identity. Maybe she feels masculine when she takes responsibility for things. Right? Maybe she feels masculine when she doesn't want to be worshipped for whatever she looks like. Or maybe she's wearing the image of masculinity for attention, which means that actually she's feminine all the time, which is my theory. She's 100% feminine. She's just using identity as a means of expressing her femininity.
Yeah.
Then again, maybe she just looked up images of man and woman in Google, and she just went with the top one that looked a bit like her. So she went with Beyonce and this random stock image. So it's not her bias we're looking at; it's Google's bias. You never know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might
That's
be her
true.
laziness that we're looking at too.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, we'll never know for sure, except because again, what we're looking at here is a video that I would feel bad making $150 for producing. Okay, honestly, I would feel bad if this was all the work I did, and I handed this in as the final product, and somebody paid me $150 for it today. I would be like, man, I really screwed that person over. That'd be how I'd feel about it. And so yeah, it's really hard to be sure, but it is interesting that she felt comfortable presenting the feminine as the opulence and narcissism of a wealthy female entertainer, and the masculine as just some rando in a suit.
Yeah.
Masculine, sometimes I find myself absolutely nowhere and I don't want to be perceived.
That's fine. We don't like perceiving any of this bullshit, but we gotta do it anyway.
But that's something for each person to kind of come to terms with and how they choose to express themselves. So it's going to be different for each person that you talk to, but that's why you should talk to people and kind of figure out where they land so you're not possibly offending them in the future.
I just want to point something out here also. I want to remind you guys, all right? This isn't just some random YouTube video where, this is this person expressing her opinions, and this is she produced this poor quality, or the company produced this poor quality, because I'm betting that she didn't do the production. I'm betting somebody else did that. And she's probably an actor that they hired to say these things. But this was produced for the U.S. military to use as an instructional video that our soldiers had to watch as part of their sexual assault prevention training.
Jesus Christ.
So if you signed up to dedicate 2 or 4 years, I think the tour is 4 years of your life, to train to possibly have to go kill people or be killed in a war that our nation might fight, in some foreign country, because we haven't really had one here in quite some time. Although it's arguable that we're in a civil war right now, but our soldiers aren't being put into action. This is what you get as part of your training.
Can we sue them? Because I want my money back.
Yeah, I think there should be a class action lawsuit.
Yeah.
This is, I want to remind you, all right. This company, Catharsis Productions, has something called a contract IDV. The ID in IDV is infinite delivery. They are an infinite delivery vendor, which means this is ongoing.
Jesus.
The military has paid them over and over and over again for shit like this. Brian says we have 2 super chows. I see one. I don't see the other one. But it says Meredith G gave us $5, and she says HBR Talk 355. What you see with Blue Ivy is second generation stage mom behavior. Beyonce experienced it. Keep in mind, Beyonce and Jay-Z trademarked their daughter's name when she was born.
Wait, what?
Wow. Jeez.
What for? I don't even want to know.
Yeah, they were planning on marketing her the day she was born then. You
Mhm.
trademark what you plan on marketing. Right? That's a brand. So their baby is a brand. When you trademark your baby's name, you just declared your baby as a brand. That's
Well, they can't
terrifying.
just adopt an African child like so many celebrities do, because they've
True.
kind of already got one, so they have to go somewhere else with it.
Frank Zappa didn't even trademark Dweezil and Moon Unit.
Didn't need to.
No, nobody was gonna steal those names, but that you know what I mean? I mean, like, that was obviously an attention ploy, or else he was high as fuck when he named them. But
I'm gonna go with that.
yeah. What's your baby's name? Moon Unit. Like, Dweezil is at least a cute name. I always wondered about Moon Unit, but in any case, yeah, it goes on. Trademark their daughter's name when she was born. There's a sick way that women will commoditize their children. Well, I don't know if you guys remember a few years ago, I went on a rant about this because of women pushing their children to be trans when the child isn't the one who initiated it and doesn't identify as such. And I said, your child's not your purse puppy. Okay. It's not.
Yep.
It's not that you had a baby so that you could show off the baby and look cute. If that's the case, you don't deserve to be a mother. Right? I'm just saying that right now. Your child is a responsibility, a person you have a relationship with who is reliant on you to help him or her develop into an adult that is capable of surviving within society and thriving within society, both socially and economically. And in order to do that, you're supposed to help your child develop the tools he or she needs to engage with other people as an equal citizen and as an equal part of the community, and to earn a living so that the child doesn't starve or suffer loss or lack of necessities and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
And
your child is a person. Full stop.
yeah,
Full fucking stop. Like, from the moment of birth, your child is a person.
a human
It's
being.
it's not your property. It's not your something you own. It's not even something that
It's not your brand.
it's not, but think of what we've done in America, and this is why circumcision is so fucking horrible, because this is what we do. We have taken this idea that you can just do whatever you want to your children, right? You can just
Mhm.
chop off bits of them, right? Because they're yours. It's my baby, and I want it to look like his father. We have just stripped our own children of their own humanity to the point where, I mean, forget about circumcision. It's just a foregone conclusion, right? Circumcision, forget about that. No, no, I want my little boy to be a little girl. And this is how far it's gone. I mean, people
Yep.
might think that this is a stretch of the imagination, but no, it really isn't. When you, as a parent, are deciding for another person that is not you, it's not your body, it's not you. You are deciding for another person what they can and cannot do with their own body. That is a problem.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well,
It's a
and you
problem.
have this what's going on with that phenomenon, all right? And the reason I likened it to purse puppies. The purse puppy thing is it's not I like puppies so much that I just can't be separated from my dog. That's not what that's about, all right? It's I'm so rich that I can get away. I'm such a socialite that I can get away with carrying an animal with me everywhere I go, and it'll do what I say. It's in my purse, and it's neurotic and depends on me, and you can't make me leave it behind because I'm bigger than you socially and economically, right? That's what the purse puppy phenomenon really is about. It is a status symbol,
Mhm.
okay? And the trans child phenomenon is I'm so politically correct that my child just happened to manifest one of the social issues that is the latest thing that people stand for.
Right.
I'm so much better than you that my child is the thing we're all talking about. It's a status symbol. It has absolutely nothing to do with caring about the child. Just like keeping your puppy in your purse with you at all times has nothing to do with caring about the puppy.
Mhm.
It it is entirely a narcissistic uh, display on the part of the mother, on the part of the pet owner.
I mean, agreed, and
Yeah.
that's why I say that circumcision is just it was the gateway into this
Mhm,
whole
mhm.
trans
Very
ideology.
much so.
So, again, if people are not aware, Eric Klopper is suing the state of Oregon, and is looking to fundraise for that effort. But yeah, no, I'm fully on board with
Oh, yeah.
anything we can do to fight the government on behalf of young boys, because this is just a travesty that has been thrust upon not only them but our entire society. I mean, we are raising a damaged generations, not just one but many generations of young men who have been abused, mutilated, and just taught that, oh, it's okay, it's all right, it's all good. There's nothing, you're just fine. This is something that was done for your benefit.
Yeah. And,
Ugh.
we've
You
had
should be.
situations where judges have actually ordered parents to consent to this. There's been one
Yeah.
judge that made the news for this, a and had the child not died from an unrelated illness. I don't think circumcision causes leukemia. There's no connection that I know about. But had the child not died from that illness, when he grew up, if he decided that he was upset about being circumcised, the judge cut off his right to sue.
Mm,
He didn't just cut off the foreskin. He cut off the child's right to sue. He actually put into his ruling that the child in adulthood could not sue anybody over this.
disgusting.
Yeah.
Disgusting. I mean,
that
how
tells
much
you it was wrong when he did it.
yeah, and how much more do you need to know to understand that this society does not give a shit about men.
Hmm.
They just do not care about you. They don't care about your bodies. They don't care about how you feel about your bodies. And let this be the other way around. Let this be a situation where we were talking about women and the government just saying, "Oh no, it's perfectly fine to just chop off her genitalia." Oh, but it's just a small incision. No fucking way would that ever be. There would be
No,
10 million pussy hats walking through the streets, okay?
there was a time. There was a time when the Muslim community pushed for, well, what if we just wanted to do a little pinprick
Mm-hmm.
in the
Well,
United States? And the law said no,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it was girls, right? Not even just a little pinprick to the hood, but a boy, you can cut the entire thing off, the entire
Yep.
hood.
Yep.
I can report that in a lot of cities in the UK, those pinpricks are happening. Things
Oh
worse than
yeah.
those pinpricks are happening, and there's nobody forming big mobs in pussy hats saying "down with this." They
Yeah.
don't. They don't seem
They're
to give a
afraid.
shit.
Yeah, I
They're,
mean that your country is just completely being taken over
Well, now
by these.
Michigan had a woman who was tried for engaging in female genital mutilation, and they used circumcision law protecting male circumcision to protect her.
Mm,
So it's ladies in the U.S. You're on notice that this could change. The status in the U.S. could change to it not being outlawed. That genital mutilation that's done to men, that's sanctioned under U.S. law, done to boys in infancy, could also be visited upon girls. So if you don't give a rat's ass about the boys, like if you're so mercenary that you don't care that boys are being tortured, you should at least consider that this could also happen to your daughters.
yeah.
Like personally, I don't want it done to anybody. I think that it's anything that is cosmetic like that, because circumcision isn't a real medical procedure.
It's
There's a
not.
lot of people that try to argue that it is, but we don't do anything that dramatic for reasons that are so unproven and minor for any other circumstance, and not call it elective and cosmetic, right?
Right.
it's
It is as
sadistic.
cosmetic. Yeah, it's as
Well,
cosmetic though as breast augmentation.
well, they say it's cosmetic. They say it's aesthetic because women like it, but women were quite fine with foreskins
Yeah,
for thousands of years, for
for
tens of,
millennia.
for
Yeah.
all of human history. It was only when it started happening that women in certain countries got used to it, and then because they were so used to it, they just wanted to have it the same way that it always existed. You have to go back to why it originally happened, and it was to reduce men's uh, um, sexual experience, to reduce men's
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and what
sexual
it represents too.
fulfillment, and that the whole reason behind that was sadism, that people didn't
Hmm.
want men to experience sexual pleasure because that would hold them back from having too much sex, or indeed just too much sexual pleasure. And so they enacted this sadistic ritual, and I'm going to call it sadistic because
It
they
is
know
sadistic.
they know it causes pain. They can't possibly not know that it causes pain because they see and they hear everything that it does to the child at the earliest of ages, and they just don't care.
I
They, they
mean,
they can go through with it. They can listen to that noise, and if you've heard that noise, good God, I
Yeah.
defy you to hear that noise without breaking down in tears. But
I,
they go through with it, even despite the pain, because they want to reduce pleasure. That is sadism, as close as you can get to the definition of sadism.
I think a lot of the people like nurses and whatever who actually take part in this, I think there is like you can't really call it the COVID effect, right? Because has been going on long before COVID was a thing.
Call it the
Um,
COVID reveal, because
y-
COVID revealed a lot of shit that was going on that we've been talking about, but a lot of people have been very blind to it.
yeah, yeah. But there are nurses who are coming out and speaking out against it and saying, I could not bear to listen to this young child scream for his life. I mean, there are children who die from this. We just turn a blind eye, like the media turns a blind eye to this, right? Like, it's just not, they just don't care. Oh, well, I don't even, I can't even understand how they try to justify it. But it's how could you even hear of one case of this happening and think that, oh no, this was just a one-off, right? Like, that wasn't normal. Like, the pain from this procedure, no, it's not normal. There's just no way. There's absolutely no way. These people are looking the other way because they are being paid to look the other way. They are being brainwashed into believing that this is something that is beneficial somehow. Oh, because it it keeps them cleaner. Oh, they won't get STDs. I'm
Which
sorry.
actually, there's some research that shows that there's an increase in certain STIs among people who have been circumcised because they take risks that
Yeah.
they would not take if
Yeah.
they didn't think that the circumcision was protecting them.
Yes.
And one of those is uh, shoot, I can't, hepatitis C, which affects your liver. So it's not a minor thing. It's not like, oh well, they might be more likely to get skin rash. No, no, they might actually be more likely to get like liver cancer and shit
Mm-hmm.
from viral infections. So let's be real when we're talking about the so-called benefits of circumcision. First of all, the main alleged benefit of circumcision you can get from taking a bath,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And the main alleged medical benefit that you can get from circumcision, you can get from wearing condoms and being selective about your sex partners.
Mm-hmm.
So, right there, those facts, and they are undeniable, those facts make the procedure medically unnecessary. It is not a medically necessary procedure. Um, Not all cosmetic procedures make people more attractive. Like, for instance, body jewelry is a cosmetic procedure, and there are people who use that shit to make themselves as ugly as humanly possible. And then there are people that have used plastic surgery to do the same. And that's their if they're adults, that's their business. They can do that. That's fine. That's their shit, not my shit. I don't control that, and I don't want to. But if you're inflicting that on a child against the will of the child, and if the child is screaming in protest, that is against the will of the child. And
Yeah.
not only can a child not consent to this, but the child is protesting,
Right.
right? And it's not like, the years of people getting their kids vaccinated against polio, which I had a teacher in school who had polio as a 10-year-old. Okay, she was in a wheelchair. Neither one of her legs worked at all. One of her arms, she had some function, but not all of it. She had breathing difficulties. She had one hand that she had near 100% function in. Okay, and that was her whole life, from the time she was 10 years old until the time she died. Now, she was a very remarkable person. She did a lot of remarkable things. Teaching was only one of them, but she had to live that way because a virus took away the functionality of her body. So
Mm.
getting vaccinated against polio actually has a purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's to spare people from ending up in that situation. And unfortunately, they didn't get it right before they inflicted it on the public. So there were people that actually initially got polio from the polio vaccine. I don't know if very many people are aware of that. Like outside of Gen X, because we were We were the generation that got experimented on with that.
Yeah. We were the
You
guinea
know,
pigs.
we were the guinea pigs. Like, we were the guinea pigs for all the vaccines that are in the schedule today. And that's I'm not going to say that necessarily the vaccines cause autism crowd was right, but because I think that there's a bigger connection between screen time and autism, and the social changes that we have been through as a result of changing our interactions from face to face to screen. Because I've noticed a deterioration in my social skills as a result of that, and I see it as a direct result. But there was quite a bit of experimentation there, and there was quite a bit of damage that took place that wasn't necessarily it within the scope of that hysteria. There was a point to recognizing that you can't just throw everything at the baby at once and not
Yeah.
have consequences, for instance.
Yeah.
And there have been children who have had allergic reactions. And then there's another aspect of it. When something is good, right, you sell it to the public by explaining why it's good. Like, I've had people say, I'm a great salesman. And, Hannah could sell a furnace to the devil. Well, in order for me to sell a furnace to the devil, I would have to figure out what angle from which the devil needed a furnace,
Mm-hmm.
right? You might want this in case hell freezes over, right? Something along those lines. But there would have to be a valid reason, honestly, why the devil needed a furnace before I would try to sell it to him, and before I would be good at selling it to him. Okay, and that is because I'm not really a good salesman. I'm good at identifying people's needs and what fits their needs when it comes to the store I work in and the product I'm selling at the time. And I was good with that when I sold cameras. I was good when I worked in a pharmacy. I was good when I worked in a convenience store. I was good when I worked at Radio Shack. Except I didn't have answers all the time. But like I worked in bakeries, and it was I was always good at identifying what people wanted or needed, and hooking up the products that fit their needs, right? But you can't do that with something that isn't good, and you can't do that with something that doesn't fill a purpose and does harm. And
Mm-hmm.
so what do you do in that situation if you're trying to get people to use it and pay for it, or take it and tax people for it? What do you do in that situation if you have the power over the public that the government has? You mandate it.
Yeah.
You tell people, well, if you don't do this, you can't send your kids to public school. You tell people, well, if you don't do this, we're going to come to your house and take your children. And, you can't go to work. You can't leave your house without a mask. You can't this, you can't that. You limit, or you punish, or you reward people and exclude people from the rewards that don't obey, right? You don't have to do that if something is as good as you say it is.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I had the power to mandate that the devil had to buy a furnace, then I could sell the devil a furnace, right? But I don't think I could just sell the devil a furnace. I know people who could sell the devil a furnace. But that's the difference between somebody who is a salesman and somebody who is a con artist. Right? And I know a couple of pretty good con artists, not people that I've ever introduced, but I do know them. And I think that a lot of con artistry was used to persuade the public to accept mandating unnecessarily extreme medical procedures on our children, and unnecessarily cosmetic medical procedures, and rushed medical procedures that constituted experimentation. because they were rolled out before they were ready. Right? So all of that kind of laid the groundwork for this DEI shit that is being imposed on, say, our military, our schools, our children, through not just things that are mandated. Like if you don't have your child enrolled in either the public education system or the private education system, the para-public education system, something that is approved by the state, that follows state-approved curriculum, the state comes and takes your children. You either have to, and they harass parents that homeschool. It's one of the things that my husband's ex did that I supported. At first, I didn't. Right? At first, because I didn't know how bad things were in the school system till my son got involved. But once I started seeing the stuff that I had to go in and fight to stop him from getting subjected to, like, well, maybe she was right about that, right? Clearly she was wrong about her ex-husband, because I happen to love him quite a bit, but she was right about the education system. And the same thing is what we're seeing here, this low quality video. And the stuff that we read on the previous pages last week from the Catharsis website, just to remind you, the different things that they're teaching that we looked at, and the descriptions, the posters that they had available, and so on, the promotional shit, all to sell like this to the public, that we're going to do this to our military. That our military personnel all have to watch videos like this, and they all have to accept things like this, right? The groundwork for that was laid by the scare tactics that were used to sell the public on the idea that you should expose your infant child to every disease known to man while they're young, in little tiny bits. The same type of medicine, by the way, that your doctor tells you doesn't work. Homeopathic remedies do not work, except vaccines, right? Because a vaccine is a homeopathic remedy. And that works. But if you overdose somebody, you get consequences. And, we weren't allowed to question that. Our parents weren't allowed to question that. And we're not allowed to question it today. And this DEI shit, none of this would have happened if more people had stepped up 50 years ago and said, why aren't we allowed to question that? I'm questioning it right now. Instead of saying, shut up, we want, to be able to send our kids to school. Don't ask questions. So what's the vaccine for DEI? What I just tell everybody is the vaccine for DEI.
I believe it's called the woke right.
Questions. The answer is questions. Come on, guys. But yeah, I hate the term the woke right too. I think that's bullshit as well. There is no woke right. There is no equivalent between this shit and anything that's going on the right. Is everything that's going on the right good and smart and wise and should be unquestioned? No, that's bullshit too. But equating it with this shit is it's moronic. I don't have a better word for that.
Yeah, no, woke right is a dysphemism used for the cure for the woke left, which is itself a euphemism. It's a complicated series of affairs, folks. I trust your intelligence to get your head around it.
And by the way, we got somebody saying vaccine is not a homeopathic remedy. So homeopathy, the practice of homeopathy is it's exposure therapy. You get exposed to a small, tiny little amount. A homeopathic remedy exposes you to a tiny little amount of the thing that is causing you a health problem in order for your body to adjust to it. That's the theory behind homeopathic remedies. And most of the time it's looked down upon by modern medicine as something that does not work. But there have been 2 instances in modern medicine where they've said, "Oh, we're going to do that." One of them is with vaccines. And I'm not saying they don't work because, like I said, the polio vaccine was very important, but they really should have been more careful how they rolled that out. And the vaccines that prevent things like measles, mumps, rubella, tetanus, they're important, but they should have been more careful how they rolled that out, right? And the only difference between a vaccine and let's have an amount so tiny it almost doesn't exist, a theory in homeopathy, is that the vaccine says, oh, well, let's have a attenuated or completely dead, one or the other. Attenuated is weakened, weakened virus or a dead virus, instead of a full living virus. So its effect is still so tiny it almost doesn't exist. And that's still homeopathy. Allergens, allergy shots are the other one, and those work. And the only difference between that and straight up homeopathy is that the allergens are combined with a substance called immunoglobulin that helps to change the way that your body responds to the allergen. And it does work. I had 20 years of allergy shots and saw some of my allergies, the ones that could be affected, because not all of them can be, reduced from high levels that made it almost impossible for me to just go outside and live in the world, to all I have to do now is take over-the-counter allergy medicine. I don't even have to take steroids like I used to. So it's a dramatic change in me. But in any case, it's all stuff that if you're going to do something like that, if you're going to go through a medical procedure like that, you have every fucking right to question it. Ask my doctor when I was growing up, the first thing she did was take questions from my parents about what is this for? What's the effect going to be? What are the risks? What are the benefits? How long are we going to have to do this? Is this going to have any negative effects that are going to last for life, and that kind of thing. And like at the bottom of the list was, can we afford this? But most of it was about the health impact of the medical course of action. And that is the normal way that you handle a course of a medical decision. You go through and you find out every bit of information about how it's going to work and how it's going to affect your body, good and bad, and you weigh all those bits of information against each other, right? And you get a second opinion if it's a very serious decision. Like if somebody said, well, you need to have a surgery, you go to another doctor. Do I really need to have this surgery? Is there something else that we can do instead of having this surgery? And that used to be standard procedure. Insurance companies used to require a second opinion before you could have a surgery. And if the second opinion didn't approve the surgery, then you didn't get the surgery. Because these types of procedures are so dangerous. Surgery introduces bacteria. Sepsis can kill you. So this is essentially like how this type of serious decision making is supposed to work. And during the lifespan of Gen X, everything changed from you go and you find out what your options are and get all the information about the benefits and drawbacks of those options and how they're going to affect you and what you can handle and so on. And then you make a decision to your medical team tells you what to do and you do it or else. And sometimes your government makes your medical decisions for you. And sometimes your insurance company makes your medical decisions for you. And you don't really get a say in the matter, even if you have perfectly valid objections. And I really think that a lot of that paved the way for decisions on everything else, including how you think what you believe, how you live your life, what your identity as an individual is, and how you parent your children, what you teach them about forming their identity and so on. Right? And that's so when we look at stuff like this and we end up sometimes diverting into other aspects of non-consensual imposition by the government, don't forget this is all related, because it really is. So now we're into pronouns. This music, by the way,
Horrible.
this is like, it reminds me of the kind of thing that they used to put into presentations for junior high school kids.
I could have sworn that was an ad just now. My ad spidey senses started tingling when that music came on.
It's okay. So other people that grew up in the States, tell me this doesn't remind you of the DARE program. I dare you to tell me that this doesn't remind you of the DARE program. All right. Especially Gen Xers.
Where do pronouns fit into the mix? Well, I'll tell you, person who's listening to this video, I'll tell you.
Notice she doesn't have pronouns for us. Well, you is a second person pronoun, but
I identify as we. I'm a schizophrenic.
or you might be a game system, depending on how you spell it.
I'm we you. I'm both we and you. I'm we, you, and us. I am the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
There we go.
You'd better call me by my chosen pronouns. Sorry, go on.
My pronouns are actions. You can't say them. In order to use my pronouns, you have to bring me a beer. I can't drink it anymore, but you can still bring me one.
Right now. So pronouns, we all have them. Okay, I already said that my pronouns are they, them, theirs. Some people identify with she, her, hers. Some people identify with he, him, his. Some people.
There's the first problem I have, and I first ran across this. All right, I want to say it was after America Online came out with its unlimited internet, but it was before you started seeing a lot of normies on communication sites. So like there wasn't MySpace or Facebook or any of that. Like this was before LiveJournal, before blogs, before MySpace. It was back when you know, if you were talking to other people, you were talking on message boards, bulletin board systems, chat rooms, shit like that, right? And I started running into people in the lavender. There were still people using the term lavender lads or the lavender movement back then. And it was sort of being pushed to become the rainbow movement, to be more inclusive. And then we were seeing more people say gay and lesbian. And somehow that morphed into putting lesbians first, even though the issues that were addressed by the gay rights movement were mostly things that affected, legally speaking anyway, mostly things that affected men. Lesbians had plenty of social issues. But when it came to legal limitations on how you could behave in a relationship, that targeted specifically men having sex with men and men having sexual relationships with men, not women. So like nobody tried to stop women under the law from shacking up together and having sexual relations in their own home, but they did do that to men. But in any case, I started seeing bits about pronouns where people who were transgender were debating the use of pronouns. And there was this discussion back and forth between some people who were transgender versus other people who were transgender. Some people who were transgender felt that using non-binary pronouns, basically pronouns that didn't identify you as male or female, undermined their status as the gender they identified with instead of the sex they were born as. And then others felt that because there were people who were never going to identify them as the sex they identified as versus what they were born as, that they needed something that was more in between. And then there were some that felt like they never made it across the transition all the way and were left with in a limbo, and they needed something to identify that limbo. But initially, what I saw in those forums was most of the people who were trans, particularly most of the people who were trans women, did not want to use alternate pronouns. They wanted to be called she and her because it undermined their identity as women if they used non-female pronouns. Whereas there were more trans men who felt like they really never made it all the way across the transition. And because of that, either it was a hormonal issue, or it was a body type issue, or the hormones didn't make them grow the hair they thought they were going to grow on their faces and stuff like that, that they didn't feel it was effective for them to use male pronouns, and they wanted alternatives. So this was something that women pushed, biological women pushed on the trans community. Now, I'm talking about just what I saw on forums that were, some of them were specifically like rainbow movement or lavender movement or what you would today call LGBT, alphabet soup, whatever. And some of them were other forums that were open to that, like the Pagan and Wiccan forums, some of the left-wing forums that I actually would go into argue about abortion, and then I would see posts about this. And I didn't get much into the debate personally. My opinion on it is those pronouns, those alternate pronouns, aren't real, and we shouldn't use them. It confuses the issue, and they're designed to prevent people from treating objective reality as objective and real. And the big issue I have with it being imposed on our military, besides the fact that we shouldn't be being asked to pay for this, is that the absolute fucking last thing we should want in our soldiers is any challenge to their ability to identify objective reality as objective and real. Not even the tiniest. We want them to be able to see what is real, know what is real, and respond logically and rationally to it. So I have major objection to this part. Just saying. Before I dive more in, anybody else got anything to say?
No, I'm good over here.
Okay.
Let's move on.
Like to add a combination of them. Some people have other ones that they also like to be identified as. The point is, it's whatever you want to be referred to as. So now I'm gonna throw at y'all some facts about gender identity and gender expression. So prepare to catch these facts.
Something tells me these are not going to be facts.
Yeah. What really gets me is how she's talking down to the soldiers like they're children. Have you noticed that? These are supposed to be the best of the best and the strongest of the strong. And she's talking to them like you would talk to a third grader or fourth grader.
That was plain poetry. Or really,
no, it was not.
I'm gonna tell you guys the facts instead. Yeah.
How was that poetic? I don't understand.
It can't be factual and poetic at the same time.
Well, I didn't hear any poetry.
Or any facts.
That's true. It was neither.
Fact number 1. There is no one way to look like a man, a woman, a non-binary person.
Okay, so
Lies.
she presented
Definitely
one
not
way to look
facts.
like a man and one way to look like a woman. And now what she's saying is there is no... What?
Like anyone, like any archaeologist who can dig up a skeleton can tell you exactly whether it's a man or a woman. I don't know what kind of biologist, whatever kind of biologist, osteoporologist or whatever it is. I mean, AI can be trained to tell the difference between men and women, even when it comes to organs. I mean, apparently there's even an AI that can that can study a heart and can tell you what race of human being it is. They can study the brain or the pelvis or any part of the body and tell you whether it's a man or a woman, or a black or a white or an Asian or whatever.
Yeah.
It's I won't say it's remarkably easy. It's kind of difficult to tell the difference between these things, but machines can be trained to tell the difference between these things, and very intelligent humans can be trained to tell the difference between these things. So, yeah, what you're spitting, lady, is not facts. It's a complete negation of facts for the sake of your propaganda. But you probably know that already, and you're going to call me a racist for saying this.
Yeah. Probably. And yes, if you disagree with this, guys, just so you know, because we have been told this over and over again, you're infected with the isms and the phobias, and you need to go to get disinfected at woke training camp somewhere or something.
There is no one way to look like a man, a woman, a non-binary person, a trans person, because we all are complicated human beings. So,
and that's why she only had one picture for what is a woman and one picture for what is a man.
We're not going to express ourselves the same exact way. If we had to express ourselves the same exact way for each gender, we'd all be doing it wrong because none of us look alike.
See, to me, this is an argument against gender identity, right? Because if you can do it differently and be the same as gender, then you don't need a spectrum of genders. You need to be able to recognize that being a man can have a variety of ways that it is expressed, and being a woman can have a variety of ways that it is expressed. And there isn't necessarily a right or wrong of anything that isn't I don't have to be responsible because I identify as this, right? As long as being an adult is in there somewhere, and being an adult has the same definition for everyone, in that there is a level of accountability that is expected when you're an adult, and a level of responsibility for the consequences of your actions on yourself and other people. A level of seriousness about taking responsibility for your own welfare and some responsibility for the welfare of the people around you. Like that's all that you need to add to being a man or being a woman, to make anything else that you determine as part of your human identity and your sex as valid. Right? The only thing that makes it invalid is if you use your identity as a means of getting away with unaccountable behavior. So there is no reason to have this whole gender identity discussion. You don't need non-binary. It doesn't need to exist, because there isn't anything too masculine to identify as a woman, and there isn't anything too feminine to identify as a man, as long as adulthood still is defined by personal accountability.
And it goes right down. It goes right down to blasters. Like, I know an embryo doesn't look like... Literally, the moment a sperm enters an egg, it could either be a sperm with XY or a sperm XX. So literally at the moment of conception, you are binary. Unless
Yep.
you are like 1 in 1,000 cases that's intersex. And that is not the same as non-binary. It's certainly not the same as whatever the fuck you're talking about. Bitch.
Yeah.
Unless you're identical twins. Then you do look alike.
Like, she had to add that. That's hilarious.
That still doesn't mean that you're... Fact number 2. Your pronouns are important and should be respected. So
No, they're not.
Not a fact. Lie. Not just
my God.
misinformation. We're not just calling it misinformation. Do you notice that? We're calling it fucking wrong. We're using Germanic words. It's a lie. It's wrong. We're not just pissing about with these fluffy Latin words. It's not misinformation. It's a wrong lie. What you're telling are wrong lies. We're able to say these things because we're not just dicking about.
Oh my gosh. It takes me back to that time when I was a little kid that I pretended for a whole week to be an alien from another planet because I thought the Great Kazoo was hilarious. The Great Kazoo was a Flintstone thing. It was a little weird little alien guy. And so for some reason, and you would think, it would have been like, oh, Marvin the Martian or something cool. No, it was the Great Kazoo.
I'm
So I had to
Zeus.
be an alien. I'm an alien from another planet. You had to identify me by an entirely different name. My parents did not tolerate that for 30 seconds, right? All my friends that were kids did, because kids will do that. But, my mother would not call me by an alternate name. My father would not call me. In fact, they were like, if you keep that up, you are going to be in the corner. That's it. You will get punished.
You know what kids did in ancient Greek times? They would literally be like, I'm Hephaestus. I'm Mercury or whatever. And they play games like that. Because those were the heroes they had. They'd be like, I'm God. And their parents didn't go, oh well, we have to treat our child like he's the god of fire.
Yeah.
And that's analogous to what we're doing nowadays. Like, I'm He-Man, I'm Skeletor. Not nowadays, but in my day. I don't know what they do nowadays. Like, I'm Bluey and I'm Peppa Pig, whatever the fuck it is.
Yeah.
We still, but when a child says I'm Peppa Pig, their parents don't typically go, oh, well, now we need to rearrange my child's fucking flesh so that they look like Peppa Pig. You know what I'm saying? You all get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Of course, kids in ancient Rome, ancient Greece, like, if your father was a blacksmith, by the time as soon as you were old enough to carry a fucking bucket of water, you worked in the smithy. You were training to be a blacksmith, unless you were a girl. And then you had to follow your mom around and learn to manage the entire estate of whatever household your family had. But or you might be preparing to in other ways to be a wife. But yeah, there was none of this. Like, childhood was not the same, right? Gen X had the best childhood, and then everything before and after that had problems. I guess the boomers had a pretty good childhood too, except for being raised by parents that came out of the Depression and still had trauma from that. Depression trauma changed a lot about how boomers were raised, by the way. But we aren't going to get into that.
So if you're someone like me who gets heard up, down, left, right, all around the town just
because you're a fucking woman.
You poor thing. Oh, how dare people recognize that you actually are female. She looks so annoyed too. Let's compare this for a second, all right? There are guys that can't walk down the street without getting called a creep because girls find them unattractive. They may not even be trying to engage with anybody. They're just walking down the street, go to the bus stop, wait for the bus, get on the bus, ride to the place that is their destination, get off the bus, go inside that place. And the whole trip, there'll be some chick, probably with blue hair like this, pretending like through her main character syndrome manifestations of victimhood that this guy is stalking her because maybe they're getting on the same bus and going in the same direction until they get off at their separate stops. And God forbid he be going to the same place she's going, because then it really gets real. And I have seen stories like this. There's a website, I don't know if it still exists or not, that I looked at a while back when I was more active on Reddit, called iHollaback. It's dedicated to women posting stories about being facing street harassment, right? And most of the stories I found consisted of, I was at the bus stop and this guy came and sat down closer to me than I wanted him to. And so I put my headphones in or my earbuds in or whatever so that he would know that I didn't want to interact. And then when I got on the bus, he, instead of sitting as far away from me as humanly possible, he sat in one of the other seats that was closer to my seat than I wanted him to sit. And then he got off at the same stop as me. I was stalked. And this is without the guys saying anything. Right. There were stories where the guys would say hello and stuff like that, and it was the equivalent, the feminist campfire story equivalent of uphill both ways every day on the way to school. It was that bad. And there were a few stories, for every 10 or 12 of those stories, there might be one story where she said I saw something back that was supposed to indicate wanting no contact, and then the guy answered her. And then for every 10 of those, there was one where a guy was actually aggressive. Right? So it gave me the impression that 99% of complaints about street harassment are bullshit, and maybe 1% are valid. And of course, they were all about guys, but women do the same thing. And in fact, I consider it to be street harassment when a woman confronts a guy in a public place as if he has done something to her when he has actually done nothing wrong.
You're kind of describing the plot of my most famous video. That song response I did, "Your hair is green."
Yeah.
You'll have to
it's
watch
real.
it.
The shit is real. It is 100% real. These women really do behave that way. And they really do make street harassment out of nothing. So,
because I'm femme presenting, that does not mean that I'm not still who I am. And I like to correct people if they are incorrect. So if you're...
Of course you do. I think that's 90% of the reason for pronouns. For these alternate pronouns. Yeah. Femme presenting.
Just existing as an obvious woman.
And I'm gonna be honest. I am always honest about this stuff, but I'm gonna be blunt. I guess this would be the best way to put it. All right. I believe that the main reason today why people adopt alternate pronouns or use pronouns that are not correct for what they look like and how they present themselves. The main reason that they do it is so that they have something to crab at other people about. and accuse other people of wrongdoing over, so that when you say sir, and they can have a temper tantrum and a meltdown and yell it's ma'am. I think that 90% of the time when somebody is using these or whatever the other 99 new pronouns that have been invented out there, bleep, bloop, bop, and all the bullshit, I think that when they use that, the entire purpose of it is just so they have something to yell at you about and play victim of, when you don't automatically know that you should ask before you identify them based on how they look, based on what they're wearing, and how their face is presented.
If you're comfortable doing so, by all means, go ahead and do it, because like I said, your pronouns are important and should be respected. Fact
And again, I'm calling bullshit.
number 3. Trans men are men, trans women are women.
Okay, you see that expression? This is what is known as duper's delight. And duper's delight is a facial expression that gives away that you are trying to con someone. You're getting one over on the other person. You're getting away with something. Right? People can decide to respect the idea that someone's transition is their reality if they want to, and interact with that person in that way if they want to, and that is their business. But if somebody doesn't want to do that, right? For instance, and this is the same way with any other aspect of your character. People don't have to like you. Nobody's obligated to consider you their friend, even if you like them and want to be their friend. Nobody's obligated to consider you attractive, even if you feel attractive, or you are attracted to them, or you want people to see you as attractive, even if you followed all the rules and worn all the right things. Like, this is something that when I was going through school, like I learned through experience that dancing the right dance to the wrong song does not entitle you to applause. Right? It doesn't even entitle you to a dance partner or tolerance from other people on the floor that are dancing the right dance to the right song. Right? It doesn't work that way. And so people's social attitudes are not something you can dictate. And
Well,
it's not something, it's not a matter of people hating you because you're non-binary or trans or whatever you identify as. It's that you don't get to decide what other people think and how other people respond to the world around them. You don't get to decide what people know and what people are willing to compromise.
it
Period.
doesn't even come down to social attitudes. It comes down to the way language works, and I don't mean to be linguistically pedantic in any way, but the whole reason we have language is to define things, and so you don't get to define your pronouns any more than you get to define your adjectives. Like, if someone sees you and thinks you're beautiful, they get to say you're beautiful, and you don't get to in turn say, no, actually, I define myself as ugly. And
Yeah.
and nor do you get to define yourself as beautiful if someone else describes you as ugly. And that itself is subjective, and even far more so than the idea of defining you as male or female. I mean, you can't actually know that someone is male and female until it's medically tested in some way. But that can be done. And so if someone defines you as male by looking at you, or female by looking at you, which in your case they can, my dear, because you're very fucking obviously female, Like you
Yeah.
don't get to say, actually, I'm male, any more than you get to say, actually, I'm beautiful. I mean, even less so, because as I say, beautiful is subjective, and male and female is actually objective. Like we have ways of defining these things. And sure, the person on the street can't get a microscope and look at your chromosomes and see if there's a double X or a double Y, but they can still figure it out.
Yep,
And
in a lot of
so,
ways.
so in a way, you can get to say I'm beautiful, and you can't get to say I'm ugly, but you don't get to say I'm male right now, because that's not it's not subjective. It's something that's determined objectively and can be determined objectively. So if you don't get to define your own adjective, then you sure as fuck don't get to define your own pronouns.
Yeah,
Like
it even goes deeper than that. It goes deeper than that. If you read about Newspeak and what the purpose of it was, right? The purpose of Newspeak was to prevent people from expressing opinions that were not state approved, and to prevent people from therefore being able to form objection to totalitarian imposition of like state overreach and abuse of the citizenry. And this is Newspeak. This is Newspeak just as much as substituting the word unalive for other words that mean death and other types of descriptions of death, right? Literally, unalive is like you can draw a direct parallel to double plus ungood between unalive and double plus ungood, right? So these alternate pronouns and the demand that people ignore what is in front of their eyes and use the pronouns they are being asked to use represents that same effort on the part of this imposition of DEI and woke ideology that started out, again, with the KGB, not anything in the United States, to prevent you from being able to object when a totalitarian government engages in authoritative overreach and begins abusing you as a citizen. That is the entire point. And I think with this duper's delight on her face, I don't know how much of that she knows. I don't know how much of that she understands. But she definitely is aware that she is in a position of power and authority, being the person providing an educational rant to a group of soldiers that has to watch this video and ordering them basically in this rant. You have to accept this unreality as your reality. You are not allowed to object to it.
That's it. That's the fact. I don't have anything else to say. That's a fact. Anyways, bye.
And like,
bye.
So, yeah, the cuteification thing gets me too. This is like, oh, if we can make this cute and innocent and sweet sounding, like if we can impose the pretense that there is nothing about this that is impositional, nothing about this that is aggressive, nothing about this that is forced, and I'm just being friendly. This is just a friendly conversation, and blah blah. And by the way, that's a very feminine way of trying to sneak things under the radar. Men don't do that normally, right? Little boys might, but adult men can't get away with it because they're too big, too strong, too hard-edged in the way they look, So they can't get away with it. Only neotenous people, so children and young women, can get away with that. And it is a cover. It is putting sugar in the poison so that it doesn't taste like poison when you're swallowing it. Oh gosh, it's almost 9 o'clock already. Fuck. I was afraid I wouldn't get to the next thing. All right, so we are not going to get to the next thing, but I am going to tell you what it is. Let me find the... So that was catharsis. All right. I don't think we have talked about... the next one is a purchase order for an organization called We End Violence, LLC. And it provides sexual harassment training support for the 70 ISRW SAPR office. And then there is, let's see, a whole list, right? Lots of money over time in small increments went to this company for a variety of things, little trainings, guest speakers, videos, and so on. So what we will do next week is we'll look at this page and this page in regard to this company. But we'll start out, I'll go back and point out the company name and what these things were paying for, and so on. So next week we'll start back up with We End Violence, LLC. Maybe we'll title that one "What's in a Name," because that's kind of interesting. And remember, this is specific to sexual violence. This isn't about all the violence, because the military is kind of, their whole purpose is violence, or at least using the threat of violence to stop other countries from engaging in violence toward us. Is what it's supposed to be anyway. But so they don't stop violence very well if they haven't ended the military. But yeah, that's where we're going next week. But in the meantime, is there anything else you guys wanted to add before I double check to see? Brian says we have 2 super chats and I still can only see one. So I think we... Oh, okay. Okay. Did you have any observations on this, Brian? Okay. Like this video for watching the video. Yeah. Oh my god. I have had to watch this video 5 times because I watched it when I first found it. And then I've watched it in between shows to make sure, do we really have to watch this whole thing during the show? And, and then I watched it during the shows too. So like every time it's been, well, we'll watch this in the next episode, I've had to watch the goddamn thing again. But yeah. So, all right. Well, in that case, thanks everybody for listening. Thanks to my 2 co-hosts for going. Sorry we had to slog through this shit, and I'm sorry we're gonna have more coming up. No more videos so far, though. Okay, no more of that. Thanks, Brian, for helping make this happen. Thanks to everybody who works in the background to make HBR Talk happen. And good night, all. We will see you next time.
Men's right activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.